All right, good morning, everybody. My name's Katie. I work for the City of Cedar Hill as the Nature and Open Space Director. I'm so excited to be here. I want to tell you all a story. So I grew up in the upstate New York area, just outside the Adirondack Mountains, and I moved here in 2014 to take a job working for one of the Audubon centers in Cedar Hill. But I remember my childhood being able to spend my summers in the backyard. We'd have fires, bonfires, and looking up at the stars and seeing the Milky Way and just having all those vivid memories. I grew up in an area where there was more cows than people. It was a very rural area, and just that is vivid in my brain, and being able to see just all those stars and how clear it was, and just taking in those moments of the fresh air and the mountains and everything like that. And moving to Texas, it was a bit of a shift for me to see the change in the scenery, see a change in not seeing as much stars. And this isn't a diss on Texas, it's just there wasn't as many stars. And I remember teaching a class. I had a group that came out, a school group that came out, and I was talking to them about the Milky Way. And one of the kids quipped, he was like, do you mean the candy bar? Like the Milky Way candy bar? And as funny as it is, it struck with me that we have a generation of children that won't see the actual Milky Way. They'll see it in movies, they'll see it in books, but they may not be able to experience it in real life like I did as a child. And that is something that will stick with me until we work together as organizations and as communities to turn off our lights, to strive towards having clear skies at night. But how is that all intertwined with birds and what we're doing here with Lights Out Texas? Well, it's something that one person can do, but we have to do jointly together to create that. When I first moved here, like I said, even I live in Cedar Hill, I work in Cedar Hill, but you can still see that sky glow coming from Dallas. And there are still certain parts within Texas. You may be able to see the Milky Way, but there's still certain parts you can't see the Milky Way. As a certified bird city in Cedar Hill, we focus on those things. We focus on threats to birds, conservation of habitat. One of the biggest things we strive to focus on is our community engagement and community relationships. And why is that? I feel like it's the most essential part of Bird City, because without the connection with the community, they're not going to understand why we do what we do. And they're not going to have a voice in why we do what we do. Because I can sit here all day and say, hey, I love birds. I think you all should love birds. Who here loves birds? Raise your hand, right? But they're going to be like, I could care less about birds. They poop all over my car. Who cares, right? But that is part of the work that we do, is bridging that connection and building those relationships within our community. So our Cedar Hill community can come in and say, hey, I want access to nature. I want to have a voice in these things. And I think that's one of the essential components in what we're doing here, is being like, well, this doesn't affect just me. It also affects you at night. So when you have your children, your grandchildren, great-grandchildren, they can say, hey, I saw the Milky Way, not just in a book, but I saw it actually in the state of Texas. Those birds that we were talking about, I was part of that generation that was protecting those birds that we see here. And one of the things that we strive for within our community engagement is we want to give a voice to our community within the things that we're doing. So we want them to give us that feedback. We, in our Cedar Hill, one of the things we joke about is that our community would tell us what we're doing well, what we're not doing well. But we welcome that feedback, because that allows them to have an opportunity to say, these are the things that we care about. And I think that's so essential to all the things that we're doing with Lights Out, all the things that we're doing with our Bird City certification. Right now, we're coming up on recertifying for our Bird City certification that we're so excited about. And our community said, hey, we actually want to do bird walks. We actually want to have amenities where we can watch the birds, where we can get out and explore more in nature. And those are the things that we take to heart when we're working with our community. One of the things that I have learned over the years as being an educator and being part of our Parks and Rec team is there are some people who are like, I'm not a huge fan of birds, and that's okay. But there is something that they enjoy about being outdoors. If going through COVID taught us one thing, people really wanted to be outside. They wanted to connect to nature. It may not be the same way that you and I connect to nature, and that's okay. But it's a connection piece for them. And I think it's up to us to find ways to engage with people through that. So the hook may be maybe getting outside and walking. Maybe it's through bike riding. Maybe it's through something. But through that, then you can build upon that. You encourage them to get outside, and then we can build up to that to be like, hey, like let's break through in some other capacity. So within that, I want to encourage all of us to find a way. What is a hook? What is a way that we can go to our communities and say, hey, let's work towards building that relationship to say, this is something we care about. This is something I would love for you to care about, but what is it that you need? What is it something that you can care about? And we can work together for this. Thank you so much for listening to my talk.